The church doors trembled as laughter echoed through the sacred halls. A young bride stood frozen at the altar, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Her groom's voice still hung in the air, cruel and sharp. "I can't marry a nobody like you." The crowd erupted in laughter, cruel, merciless, and loud enough to rattle her bones. And just as her world shattered before 100 mocking eyes, the ground outside shook. Engines, dozens of them. A convoy of black SUVs stormed the church lawn like a military invasion. The laughter died instantly. Every guest turned. The bride's name was whispered in disbelief, but not the name they thought they knew. Because Elena Marquez was no ordinary bride, and today her past had come crashing through the doors. Elena's white gown clung to her slender frame. No lace, no jewels. Just a simple dress chosen because it felt honest. Her dark hair was tied back without glamour, her face bare of makeup, raw, unshielded. The sanctuary smelled of lilies and candle wax, but beneath it all hung the stink of scorn. Richard, her groom, stood several steps away. His voice had broken when he'd thrown down the microphone, but the cruelty was deliberate. "I won't marry into nothing," he spat, red-faced and shaking. "Not in front of my family, not in front of the world." A ripple of laughter swelled from the pews. A woman in diamonds whispered, "Pathetic." A man with too much wine snickered, "Look at her dress, bargain bin bride." The sound cut Elena like shards of glass, but she didn't flinch. She stood tall, her bouquet digging thorns into her palms, blood pricking her skin. Her silence was louder than their mockery. The night before, the Hale family had thrown a grand pre-wedding gala at their estate. Chandeliers glittered overhead like cruel eyes watching her every move. Elena had arrived in a plain gray dress, no necklace, no heels. She stood out among the silk gowns and tailored suits. And the whispers never stopped. A young woman draped in sequins whispered loudly enough for Elena to hear, "An orphan. Really? This is who Richard's marrying?" Her companion, a slick man with a Rolex, chuckled. "Guess he's slumming it." Elena gripped her glass tighter but said nothing. Her silence became her shield. Later, Richard's mother, Margaret Hale, swept through the crowd, pearls gleaming at her throat. She stopped near Elena, her words sharpened to cut. "My son could change his mind at any time. Remember, this is charity, not destiny." Elena met her gaze and simply nodded. Not agreement, just acknowledgement. Vanessa, Richard's ex, circled like a vulture, her laughter ringing like broken glass. "She's clawing her way up," she sneered to her friends, "from nobody to parasite." Elena stood still, her eyes fixed on the floor, her jaw tight enough to ache. That night, when Elena returned to her small apartment, a black SUV waited outside. A man in a dark coat handed her an envelope, saying only, "Tomorrow, you'll need the truth." Inside was a photo. Elena in uniform, younger, standing with a unit of soldiers, faces she'd buried in memory, a life she had locked away. She hadn't told Richard. She hadn't told anyone. Now, in the church, Richard's voice rose again, trembling with anger and shame. "She's nothing. She doesn't belong here." Vanessa clapped mockingly. "Told you, she's a parasite." A photographer shoved forward, snapping pictures of Elena's still figure. "The nobody bride, abandoned at the altar. Front page material." The crowd laughed again. But Elena's eyes lifted to the stained glass, where sunlight painted her in colors she couldn't feel. Her silence cracked the laughter just slightly. And then the ground shook. Engines roared outside. Black SUVs lined the church lawn. Helicopters thudded overhead. The doors burst open, and soldiers in tactical gear stormed in. Boots thundered across marble. The crowd gasped, some clutching their pearls, others frozen in fear. At the front stood Commander Blake Rowe. His presence cut through the chaos like a blade. He pointed straight at Elena. "Captain Marquez, it's time to reclaim your honor." The bouquet slipped from Elena's hands, petals scattering across the polished floor. A young SEAL stepped forward, saluting with trembling hands. "Ma'am," he said, voice cracking, "you carried my brother 2 miles under fire. You saved his life." The room shifted. Whispers turned to gasps. Commander Rowe held up a folder. "This is the truth about Captain Elena Marquez. 5 years ago, she led a covert mission. Over 100 soldiers lived because of her. Her report was buried, her name erased to protect the corrupt." The crowd stared stunned. Senator Victoria Kane shot to her feet. "Lies! She's a failed soldier, a coward." Elena's gaze locked on her, steady and calm. "You gave the order, didn't you? You buried the truth." The church erupted into chaos. Guests whispered, shouted, denied. Richard's face turned pale. Blake opened a velvet box. The Medal of Honor gleamed inside. "This belonged to you. They stole it. No more." Elena's hands trembled as she held it, her eyes wet but unbroken. "I don't need false love," she said softly. "I already have a family, the ones who never abandoned me." The soldiers saluted in unison, the sound echoing through the sacred hall. But before the crowd could settle, another figure stepped through the doors. A scarred soldier removed his mask, his voice breaking the silence. "I never left you." Elena's breath caught. "Daniel?" Her lost fiancé, thought dead 7 years ago, knelt before her. "I lived in the shadows. I fought for you, for us." The crowd gasped, cameras flashed. The truth could no longer be buried. Senator Kane was led out in cuffs. Richard sank into disgrace, his family's legacy shattered. Vanessa fled, her reputation crumbling. Elena walked down the aisle, no longer the abandoned bride, but Captain Elena Marquez, honored and whole. And outside, as sunlight bathed her in gold, Daniel took her hand. She was no longer a nobody. She had always been more. "You've been judged before, haven't you? Told you didn't belong. Made to feel small in a world that didn't see your worth. Elena's story is yours too. It's about rising when the world tries to break you. So tell me, where are you watching from? Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and let's walk through these stories together. Because sometimes the nobody is the one who changes everything.